Indie games are back. After a summer lull due to all the showcases and the Steam sale, things are getting back to normal, so new indie games of interest begins with Bloodhound, a throwback first-person shooter inspired by the classics of the 90s and early 2000s, but notably, it's not exactly going in the boomer shooter direction in terms of visuals. Rather, it looks more modern in terms of textures and weapons, where it's about as classic a setup as it can get. We are fighting against the forces of hell, from grotesque monsters to members of a cult, even having boss fights, and looks awesome. This will be split into 5 acts and has 10 deadly weapons, where combat and level design will be key to its success, so here's hoping that it does well since I want more games like this to exist. Another action-packed title is Blackout Protocol, where up to 3 players delve into a top-secret research facility that has become overrun by all sorts of monsters. So think of an SCP facility going dark, where interestingly this is a roguelite, but the co-op focus does make it different. Strangely enough, it does also come to us from the developer of the tactics title Lost Eidolons, so this is quite a change in genre, as are some other games further down in this list, but it does look like fun with friends and will be an early access release. Hey, if you made it this far, subscribe to my weekly newsletter to keep on top of all things indie games, link in the description below.
Hey Gordon, it's Kyle. I know we're dropping this on you last minute, but we need you to head down to the Sunrise Street studio lot. The antenna activated itself last night and started broadcasting that old puppet show over the news. You need to turn that thing off. You gotta get this done, man. Bye.
The last job of the day is always the worst.
Raise the curtain, bring up the lights, the neighborhood is coming to town.
I'm not usually a horror game person, especially mascot horror like Five Nights at Freddy's, but I do think that My Friendly Neighborhood is interesting enough to warrant some attention. You play as a repairman sent to fix a supposedly faulty antenna, broadcasting old episodes of a Sesame Street-like children's show that was cancelled many years ago, where the building itself contains the sets for the show, and of course, things have gone horribly wrong. The puppets have come back to life and are presumably wanting to kill you, where to be honest, this game does give me the heebie-jeebies since Sesame Street and the Muppets never really sat right with me even as a kid, so it's interesting to see this developer take the idea in this direction. A game that I previewed for July is Stong's 9800 Stock Market Simulator, a largely text-based simulator title set in Japan in the 1980s. You have to read financial statements and buy and sell stocks in order to maximize profits while occupying yourself with a variety of mini-games to pass the time while trying not to overwork yourself to exhaustion. The interesting part is that in history, there was a major market crash in 1991, which I'm assuming this game will lead into, so I do wonder what the consequences of that would be, both narratively and mechanically for the game, but it's definitely something a little different to try. The ultra cozy Sticky Business also makes it to release, one which I did feature in my own Summer Games showcase, where this is a simulation title where you're running a business making and selling stickers. The art style in this is adorable, where you have to design, sell, and then fulfill these orders, looking pretty charming, and I suspect is a type of cozy business that quite a number of you might be interested in running. An oldie but a goodie is Might and Magic Clash of Heroes Definitive Edition, a remastered version of one of my favourite Match 3 games of all time, since it is based on the world, factions and units of Heroes of Might and Magic 5, which I do like, but it's not HMM 3 but is far better than 4, where the IP is technically owned by Ubisoft, but mid-sized indie developer Capybara Games made this title, so I'm excited to see another generation get to play this game. We have a ton of games to go through, beginning with Brewpub Simulator, a first-person title where you're running your own pub and brewing your own beer, looking kind of neat, and games like this have an uncanny way of blowing up in popularity. Demon Lord Reincarnation is a first-person dungeon crawler with an art style that stands out, although I don't think that the muted colours are doing it any favours, but if you're a fan of games like The Legend of Grimrock, this will be one to watch. DROS is a third-person action-adventure puzzle game where you have to ascend a giant steampunk tower where the combination of puzzles and action looks delightful. I came across this title on Kickstarter a little while back, where FARSIDERS is an isometric 3D action-adventure hack-and-slash title set at the intersection of a sci-fi world and one with medieval magic, tapping upon Arthurian legend for the characters and looks neat, being a linear, story-driven title and is not a roguelite. I was deliberating whether or not to include this title on the list, and did so since Froggy's Battle is an action roguelite where you're moving around a loop and fighting off enemies, having combat and even a trick system to defeat your enemies, not to forget its adorable art style. Full Void is a very interesting looking cinematic puzzle platformer and does evoke games like Flashback and seems interesting.
Survival in this desolate land. It's all about harsh choices. By yourself, all you've got around you is desert. Choose to band together with others, you've got life.
Homeseek is a Frostpunk-like survival city builder, but in a post-apocalyptic desert instead of a central city blanketed by frost and snow, where it has a story campaign, distinct levels and scenarios, different factions and resources to manage, and more.
People will die, but it's up to you to make the best of it. To survive, you must reach out to the world outside. And the most difficult choice is always right around the corner.
I don't know how to pronounce this, so The Knights of the Cross is a pixel art deck builder title that looks awesome, where to be honest, they got me right off the bat with the sprites, and is a linear narrative title in the main mode, although there is a roguelite version as well. Lakeburg Legacies is the next title from the developer of The Last Spell, which is a huge departure as well, since it's a management sim where you get to play matchmaker to create couples that will advance your kingdom, looking kind of weird but interesting. I don't know why the title of this game is stylized as such, but let's! Revolution is a puzzle-based roguelite where you have to uncover the path to the end of the level, looking to be inspired by Minesweeper and has a good look. I also want to give a quick mention to the Switch port of Punch-a-Bunch, a physics-based fighting game from game developer and YouTuber Pontypants, so go check it out. This week also sees the release of Punch Club 2 Fast Forward, a fighter management sim that is the sequel to a fan favourite. We are training up our protagonist, having an insane and almost nonsensical story which is part of the charm. We also have the release of Roto Force, a self-described twin-stick shooter, but one that is set in a rotating arena, where I do like the more minimalist pixel art look and colour palettes shown off. The top 5 begins with Tectonica, a first-person factory builder title that sure looks like Satisfactory to me, but where the game appears to be set entirely underground, foregoing the blue skies and open landscapes for dank caverns. But if you love games like Factorial, you know the drill by now.
And a mystery we couldn't explain. And that's where you come.
You need to build conveyor belts and machines to mine and process various ores, using these to advance further up the tech tree so that you can build new stuff, get upgrades and explore even further.
So am I. Let's get to work.
I don't believe there's any combat in this, but there does appear to be a central sci-fi mystery narrative to keep you hooked, where co-op support for up to 4 players will help as well, but as is tradition, will be an early access release with room to grow. We do also have the release of Lisa Definitive Edition on consoles, being the enhanced release of a game from 2014, which is one of the more darkly disturbing RPGs despite the visuals. Sure, it has to be inspired somewhat by Earthbound, but the themes and mechanics are kind of messed up, where a hero can lose limbs and eyes, and party members can get killed, but this release includes remastered graphics, updated UI, new quests, bosses, secrets and more, but if you get the current version on Steam before July 18th, you'll get the update for free. There's also the long-awaited release of Xenonauts 2, the sequel to a cult classic indie tactics title that is the spiritual successor to the original XCOM games, as compared to XCOM Enemy Unknown and XCOM 2 by Firaxis, but this does nail it in the visuals department for evoking that old school feel. It is set in a world where the Cold War still rages on, but where you're in charge of a secret organization that has to protect Earth from alien threats, intercepting UFOs and sending teams to crash sites. There's turn-based combat, research and base upgrading, so it's fascinating to see an indie version of this idea. One of the standout successes of the Steam Next Festival is Viewfinder, a first-person shooter where you're pointing and shooting with your camera and taking pictures, using these and perspective to progress further. It got quite a bit of attention during the festival, rightfully so since it is innovative and has a great visual style as well. The impossible structures and geometry that results from this game are just a wonder, having the opportunity to blow your mind with any one given puzzle, so I'm very curious about this and should be one of the best games of the year. It will be no surprise that this co-op-focused pixel art action roguelite gets top billing, since I did preview it for July, where the brief on Ember Knights is essentially Wizard of Legend meets Hades, with plenty of weapons, builds in each run, and constant unlocks, and should be one of the best games of the year, where you can find the rest of that list in this video.